Hello, friends, and welcome to What the Fringe, the podcast dedicated to all things Fringe theater. I'm your host, Lauren Hance. Each week, I visit with a Fringe artist to hear all about their endeavors and gain insight into their process. And I am doubly excited because we are back for season 3. We've been on a little break and a little hiatus, but What the Fringe is back. We're going to be kicking off our season featuring artists that are performing at the Adelaide Fringe. So we'll have a few weeks of those, and then we'll take a little break because we're going to Adelaide Fringe. So I'm super excited. And then we'll come back with more Fringe artists, and we have a whole season planned out for you. So welcome back. And then this week we are kicking off with Connor Delves from Cadel, Lungs on Legs. From down under to the top of the podium, experience the riveting true story of Cadel Evans, the first and only Australian to win the Tour de France. Fresh from a sold-out, award-winning season at the 2025 Edinburgh Fringe, Connor Delves delivers a powerhouse solo performance that puts audiences in the cycling saddle. Pedaling live on the bike, Evans' road to victory. Delves fuses grit, storytelling, and heart-pounding energy in a breathtaking theatrical ride. A high-octane tribute to endurance, ambition, and the spirit of Australian sport.
The question that came up about a potential transfer to West End Broadway was, well, we would probably replace you with a celebrity, which is a real part of the industry. And I was like, well, I've been a part of this development for 5 years, got you the reviews, performed to the best of my ability and was recognized as such. And now you want to replace me potentially with a celebrity. And this wasn't from the creative side, this was on the producing side. And that was kind of like a big picture foreshadowing of where the industry is now heading. So I thought, what's a show that I can create that speaks to my skill set and I know no one else can do it that I currently know? And Cadel Evans changed my life as a kid. Watching an Australian win the Tour de France was something that we thought may never happen. And coming out of the saga of Lance Armstrong and the drug scandals of the tour, and cycling as a sport was disgraced at the time, it really reshaped how Australians saw cycling and sport in general, and we're a big sporting country, and I knew I can do that.
Connor Delves is an Australian-born, New York-based actor, singer, producer, and director who has worked in the US, UK, and Australia. Connor stars as Cadel Evans, Australia's first Tour de France winner in Cadel, Lungs on Legs, winning Best Show of the Fringe from Theatre Weekly, and being praised as magnificent, remarkable, triumphant, and a tour de force. He is known for his critically acclaimed performance as Mercutio in the UK premiere of Star-Crossed in London, for which he earned Offie and Broadway World nominations. He was quoted by What's on Stage as delivering a masterpiece. Other off-Broadway credits include Daniel's Husband, Endangered, and Precious Little Talent. He can be seen on Hulu, the Hallmark Channel, and at the Australian Theatre Festival New York City, where he serves as co-artistic executive director. Connor, welcome to What the Fringe.
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm so pumped to be here. Love your show, love what you're about. It's so awesome.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited because we're just kicking off season 3. I always take a little break. And so I'm super excited to have you here. We got connected because we're actually both performing at the Goodwood Theatre Studios at the Adelaide Fringe this year. And your show, I'm so excited, is headlining that venue, which is just so cool. I know Simi was just like popping out of her skin to like get you at Goodwood. And so I'm just super excited. And then I was like, I gotta have this guy on the podcast. I know I'm like gushing about you, but there you go. Take it, receive it. It's so good.
Received, yes.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your journey as an artist, because you live and work in New York City now. You went to school there, but you were born in Australia. So tell me, how did you get from Australia to New York? What was that kind of journey like for you?
Yeah, I mean, where I'm from in Australia, Perth, it's the most isolated capital city in the world. And there's a thing about people from Perth that they often want to explore the world. We're big travelers. We're so far off from everything, so we want to go find other things. And Perth is the home of WAPA, which is an incredible acting school. Hugh Jackman went there. But I kind of really wanted to explore elsewhere and see, if I was going to leave and go to Sydney or Melbourne anyway, I might as well just go to New York, where I had experienced the highest ceiling of theatrical work production, the most inspiring work that I'd seen when I'd come here on tour and on vacation as well. And I thought, why not just apply and see and get across to the US or to London? And New York worked out first. So I jumped at that, and I was 18 and I got on a plane and with like 3 suitcases and moved my life here and just committed to making New York home and started that community build, which I think is just as important as the potential, artistic skill build, which we all go through, but the community building is definitely what's kept me here. So that journey was, fast and directly after high school, and probably, young male arrogance came into play. Like, I wasn't nervous. People ask, like, how did you do that? Were you nervous? I'm actually like, no, I wasn't. Going to a school environment really helps that, of course, because you get built-in friends and colleagues, and that was an amazing experience. But just jumping into a city that's so high-paced and has so much going on, and you can really involve yourself as much as you want to. That's how I operate anyway. So it matched my energy, and I had a lot of it at the time, and it was kind of a fantastic, immersive experience to jump across. So that's how it started here in New York, and then work visa, and now green card, and I'm still here and had some amazing opportunities to work here in New York and develop work here in New York, start a festival, and then also travel the world to act and keep it going and stay alive in kind of this time of post-pandemic arts creation, which is becoming more commercial and difficult to survive. So really the pride comes in still being here.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So the Australian Theatre Festival that you kind of co-founded there, I was looking at it. You guys started in 2019, so just right there before the pandemic. So tell me a little bit more about this festival. There's some really, really cool things. I just want to hear from your mouth what this festival is about and what it's doing for the community.
Yeah, we identified that there was a lack of opportunity for Australian artists based in New York City to speak in their own voice and tell their own stories, despite the plethora of talent available and the artists here earning visas and working and making it happen. There's so many of us, and we're an interesting subgroup because we're so often performing in other accents and telling other stories without the balance of getting to do our own. So we created the festival, and Mark Barford, who directs Cadel, is also my co-artistic director and executive director. We work together closely, and we thought, let's make a festival that focuses on celebrating Australian stories and artists in New York City. And how does that happen? I was really inspired by Pride Plays. A friend of mine, Michael Urie, started that incredible festival of new work with artists in the queer community, and that model was one that was attractive to me, because it showed a way that we can give a platform without requiring huge budgets. So that started, in 2019 with the goal of a festival in May 2020. And we pivoted and did an online festival in 2020, which was actually really successful, as it gave Australian artists in the city something to do in 2020 and, letters for their visas and proof of work and all those things that we require as immigrants to stay here and be valid parts of this country. So that was great. And then we've now done 6 in-person festivals onto year 7 in 2026 and bring Australian plays, cabarets, panels, parties, readings. We have a new play award, which awards $15,000 cash to the winner and development and the opportunity to be in the festival, and $5,000 to a runner-up as well every year, which is a really fantastic program of ours. We have a fundraising gala and then our annual festival. And we bring in plays from across the world that have been in Edinburgh or in Australia. We have new work starting up here, singers that are on the Broadway community, and mixing all in with these new Australian artists coming out of school as well. So it's a really exciting community. We thought we deserved one and a platform to do so. The way I describe it is it's a day job for Mark and I that is in the industry and a really passionate one. And I sits alongside my acting work, and for Mark sits alongside his directing work. So it's fantastic to have that platform, and really honoured that the board still trust us to take it forward onwards as a non-profit theatre company here in the city.
That is so cool. And it sounds like you guys are doing a lot of the groundwork for those artists. Fringe, you have to hustle. It's all your own self. And even getting into a festival here in the US, which is a lot smaller than like Edinburgh, Adelaide. But what kind of support are you giving? Because it sounds like you're doing a lot of the lead work and not kind of handing that off to the artist and letting them be a creative. So what are the things that you do for them?
Yeah, it's definitely a model that's evolved over the years. We have developed plays up to the staged reading format. We've also brought across fully staged plays. And so there's lots of different ways to be involved in the festival in that way. And certainly we want to provide and easy access and platform. We know these artists from Australia. To get them across here, one is a very expensive thing, and have the resources for a quick turnaround of a much shorter festival than something like Edinburgh. The resources need to be there already to set them up for success and to give them opportunity and to focus on the good stuff, which is the work. So we do provide things like the theatre rental and the expense of, things that people might not think about, someone to program the lights and all of these things that places like Edinburgh, which are an amazing platform, but they kind of just throw you to the wolves and like good luck. And some artists and producers work it out that they need all those support workers with them, but it's often an expensive thing that people can't afford. So it's something that we want to make accessible. And for the right work and right people, we're willing to invest that. And they invest their time with us as the festival and present under the festival banner. And we want to be the best presenters we can be as well. So whilst we're developing new work with the New Play Award, and Mark is an incredible dramaturg, that's part of that prize too, that they get dramaturgy and publishing opportunities too. But the plays that are coming in, or the musicals that are fully developed already, we still want to provide them support and not just kind of take their money.
Oh, I love it. I'm like coming out of my skin. So exciting. That's very, very, very cool. I'm going to ask this next question. I'm going to 180 here. Your resume includes a Hallmark film, and you were in the Sugar Plum Twist, which is like Sugar Plum Fairy with a Latin twist. You played Young Man. I have so many questions. Did you get to use your Australian accent? Did they fly you to Canada? I always think they film in Nashville, but I know they don't. They film in Canada. Did you have to have a US accent? Did you just have 3 lines? Did you play opposite one of them? And the biggest question, you do not have to answer this one. You can answer this that I'm asking any way you want. But did you have a Hallmark experience on the set of Hallmark and meet your soulmate? I mean, these are important things we need to answer on What the Fringe. So you're my first Hallmark film person to come on. So I have to know,
Yeah, I mean, look, it really came at a really cool time in my career right before the pandemic. The audition came up right before the pandemic and then went on pause because of the pandemic. And I thought, okay, I'm never going to work again. This is great. And then they made me re-audition. And to that point, I hadn't really had much experience in the TV world or the film world, beyond kind of indie stuff. So it was a tape, and then I sent it off and honestly didn't think about it. I taped 2 tapes that day and actually booked both, which was great. I booked a film called Pinball with Mike Feist in it that same day and filmed them with a friend of mine and kind of didn't think about it. And then my agent called me later that week and said, you've booked both. And I thought, wow, this is 2021. I didn't think I was going to work again, but this is amazing. And got my SAG card and it was really cool. And to do a Hallmark role that was an American role. Yes, it was an American accent, which is really cool. Most of my credits to that point had been in American or English, but never Australian, funnily enough. So yes, it was a full-on American Hallmark role. I was playing much younger than I am. We shot in Connecticut because I was on location for my part of the shoot. But what you really witness with Hallmark is and this speaks to a lot of other big industry around the TV world and film world, is that it's a beast. It's a big machine that pumps them out, and it's so done by the book. It was funny to roll up to set and be ushered around, and the big problem that day is the snow machine was broken. True disaster station, and I'm kind of rolling up oh my God, there's 1 million people. 0 people know who I am except this production assistant, who is very lovely, and the snow machine's broken. And so they said, I had, I don't know, a really lovely scene with 2 of the leads. And it was kind of, I was a student of the lead in the film, and go up and compliment him in front of his love interest. She sees what a great teacher he is. And then they're under the mistletoe and the snow and the kiss. And it was a lovely little scene. And the snow machine is kind of what changed that. It became a 2-line scene in the end, which was in post. They were on set trying to calm it down by saying, we're just going to add in snow in post, and that became quite difficult. So I got cut up in post and became a very small part of the film, which is fine. When you just learn kind of it's a big beast, and they treat you really well on set, and you get paid more in a day than you get paid for certainly the month of Edinburgh. It's a churn and burn industry, and I loved being on set. No, I didn't meet my now partner then, but she would love to have been in that situation. But it was, honestly, I didn't really speak to many people. It was kind of whisked in, did my bit, and then left, and was driven back to the lovely hotel, and then kind of delivered my SAG card. And that was my Hallmark experience.
Hey, that's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. It's just a really, really silly, fun thing to talk to you about. So let's talk about your serious work. I mean, that's serious work. You got your SAG card. I love that they were lovely to you. That's really good to hear, and something that does kind of churn out a lot, that they were kind and lovely to work with. So that's really beautiful. But let's talk about your show, Cadel, Lungs on Legs. What made you want to write this show about Cadel Evans?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been an athlete. I grew up in an athletic family. My dad was a mountain biker. My mum was a triathlete. They owned a bike shop in South Perth, by 4 South Perth. And I literally grew up in the back of that bike shop and was always competing at a really high level in lots of different sports. I grew up riding a bike, running, doing triathlons, playing Australian football, cricket, literally everything. And it was always sport and drama. And I went to a really amazing school that facilitated both really lovely, in a lovely way. And at one point I had to choose. I chose to be an actor and have always been competing on the side. I run, half marathons and lots of races here in New York. I play for the Australian football team, but had never been able to show my physical ability on the stage. It's just not something that's embraced in its true form, potentially because most actors are athletes in different ways. And I'd seen some shows about sport, and every single time would come out and go, that's not the sport. Like, that's, with respect to those creators, it's a theatricalized version of sport that isn't the effort, isn't the physical athletic ability. And I was sitting in an Edinburgh bar in 2024 watching the Paris Olympics, and my now co-writer Steve McMahon and I were sitting there, and we were like, we're two of the only artists here that are really thrilled by all the sport happening and invested in sport in that way. And he said, mate, you're an athlete. Why haven't you done a show about Australian sport? And I was like, yeah, that's true. I had this idea about how can I show physical effort on stage and do it every single night, because a question that had come up in a previous show that I had done quite well in, despite 5-star reviews and amazing review quotes about me and my performance and all of these things, a question that came up about a potential transfer to West End Broadway was, well, we would probably replace you with a celebrity, which is a real part of the industry. And I was like, well, I've been a part of this development for 5 years, got you the reviews, performed to the best of my ability and was recognized as such. And now you want to replace me potentially with a celebrity. And this wasn't from the creative side. This was on the producing side. And that was kind of like a big picture foreshadowing of where the industry is now heading. So I thought, what's a show that I can create that speaks to my skill set? And I know no one else can do it that I currently know. And Cadel Evans changed my life as a kid. Watching an Australian win the Tour de France was something that we thought may never happen. And coming out of the saga of Lance Armstrong and the drug scandals of the tour, and cycling as a sport was disgraced at the time, it really reshaped how Australians saw cycling and sport in general. And we're a big sporting country, and I knew I can do that on stage. I can ride for the whole show on stage and sprint and do all those things and do it every single night and achieve that. And there is no way that Timothée Chalamet can do that. With a lot of love to a very talented man, and he can do a lot of things that I can't do. But this one, I think I can take.
I think you've got him on that. Okay, so I've seen one other person ride a bike on stage, but it was not it wasn't professional level kind of athleticism. So what kinds of things? I mean, you've got the trainer kind of set up there, so the wheels are going. You're not just in a circle. Like, what does that look like while you're on stage? I've seen like some other clips of people handing you water and those kinds of things. So how did you kind of construct that, and physically what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is we wanted to make the audience feel like they're at the Tour de France. That was step one. And me actually riding to high intensity on stage. So the way that we facilitate that is with Wahoo, who are the company that do the trainers for the Tour de France. And they have a turbo trainer that you can get to high efforts on. You can turn the intensity up. So I'm dialed into quite a high intensity so I can push out those watts. And you can see that on the gears on the bike. You can see it in my legs I'm obviously under stage light and there's no fan or wind, so I'm sweating really to create a splash zone in the first few rows, which was really exciting to trial that way of doing it in Edinburgh. And now the show is upgrading. I'll be on a full revolve on the stage. It'll be on a road. So it's going to be quite immersive, and I'll be spinning whilst riding and doing all those things to really elevate the experience on stage for the audience to feel like they're on the roadside. So that's where we're heading with the show. That's the version that will be in premiering in Australia at the Signet Theatre at Hale School, and then going on to Adelaide and Cadel's Race and all those amazing places that we get to play in Australia before we head back to the UK and then back here to New York. So it's upgrading in that way, but I'm locked in on stage and absolutely sending it is probably the best way to put it.
Can you let this secret out? Because I mean, how fast are you actually going? I mean, Cadel, like he didn't have to talk and like perform when he rode his bike. So you're like on a different level here. So are you going actually as fast as they go, or can you tell us that, or does that ruin the illusion?
No, not at all. I mean, you can see the gears. I mean, I wanted to be transparent about I'm doing the physical effort. I'm not just spinning the pedals at an easy resistance. I cycle about 27 kilometers per show. It's about a 60-minute show. I'm riding for, over 90% of it. I get up above 50 kilometers an hour in one of the sprints, which is, pretty close to the pros. Obviously, it's on a flat surface as opposed to up a mountain or something. But I'm dialed in, and we change the resistance throughout the show to simulate mountain climbing, to simulate sprinting, all of those things. So there's real attention to detail. I'm cycling to Cadel's cadence. I'm cycling on the actual bike that he rode in his actual kit. So we really have made an effort to make it authentic.
I love that. Okay. So when I'm done with a Fringe show, I like pop some clothes on, maybe wipe a little sweat, and I head to the Fringe bar. Like, what is your post-show process? Because you are probably just drenched.
Yeah, it's definitely a bigger process than just a 65-minute show. It includes, a warm-up before, obviously a lot more fluid intake. We've built that into the show, just as cyclists do. I'm drinking water and we call water mix, which has electrolytes in it throughout the show. I take gels in the show for a carb intake, but we have an onstage assistant who acts as, team members, cycling team members and referees and all those things, who's also passing me new bottles and new jerseys and interacting as a team member, which is really fantastic because it allows me to stay on throughout the whole show and keep riding, keep pedaling. So that's a big part of it. So my fueling, as we call in the cycling world, is a big part of the show. And it was a very different experience, Edinburgh 25, as opposed to when I was there in a musical in 2024, where, I saw, I think, 80 shows in 2024. This year, I saw about 45 whilst doing the show every day. Another big part of the show is that I'm riding Cadel's actual bike and people want a photo with it after. I would always say in the post-show speech, I said, if you want a photo with me and the bike, or if you just want a photo with the bike, which is most of them, that they can come downstairs and meet me. But that becomes another hour, and I then have to go to a cool down and have significant carb intake. So I've been working with a trainer who's also my nutritionist, Prime Train, who's an Australian-based fitness influencer that has really changed the game for me and my body, because obviously the risk here is that my body breaks down. And I did 26 in a row in Edinburgh. It was meant to be 24 with a day off in the middle. It became 26 with no days off because of a showcase, and then also 2 additional shows because we sold out. So I'm capable of doing it for a long time in a row, but it's really specific about the fueling and intake, and I'm focusing on my body most hours outside of the show.
Yeah. So what's your relationship with Cadel like? Have you met him, or were you just like, I'm a super fan and I'm going to write a show about him?
Yes, we've met over, Zoom many, many, many times. And then I will be at his race in January. They've invited us to his Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road race to open the race weekend and preview the show on January 30 at Geelong Arts Centre. So that's a very exciting in-person collaboration that's now happened because of this. But it all started because my dad's connections in the industry, in the cycling industry. A friend of his worked at BMC, which is the bike company that Cadel rode to victory on in the tour, and said, look, I can set up a meeting, but you have to come with a pitch and how this is going to work and see if they're interested in supporting the show and with, product and bikes and everything. And I did that meeting and felt really good about it. And he said, yes, we're definitely on, and we'll, give you the bikes and whatever you need access-wise to product. But also, would you like to talk to Cadel? Because he's still a global brand ambassador. And I said, yeah, I think I would. You don't have to ask permission for public personas in writing about them. But I wanted to involve Cadel if he was interested. And, he's only in his 40s and still very active in the cycling community. And I think there's things that he could potentially give me that he hasn't mentioned in his book or online or in interviews that would be helpful to the show. And it is a hero arc after all, and I'm honouring him. It's not slandering him at all. So he's been so gracious, and he's all about the riding and all about the bike and super focused, speaking about cycling and riding and about how he operated. So he's given some amazing insight into his mindset in not just 2011, but when things weren't so smooth in 2007, 8, 9, 10. And it's been a blessing. So, we're involved with them. They've endorsed the show, as has Phil Liggett, the famous commentator who came to our first Edinburgh preview and has provided some commentary for the show too. So having the cycling community and obviously Cadel on board has been a big focus, and so exciting that they're involved.
Oh man, that's amazing. So what makes Cadel Evans so special outside of cycling, right? Because you're telling a story, right? We're theater people, so we have to get past just the cycling of it, right? I can turn on the TV, I can watch on YouTube or wherever it is, I can watch that. But there's a deeper story there. So what makes him so incredibly special?
His win in the Tour de France is truly against all the odds. There was no way this was going to happen. He was 34, so he was the oldest post-war winner of the Tour. There was never someone from the Southern Hemisphere that had won. It's just too difficult. And he was known as Cursed Cadel. He was runner-up twice when he was in his prime. He was coming into professional cycling at a time that doping was everywhere. And he was a clean rider, but there was doping everywhere, and some got caught, some did not. So who knows how he would have fared earlier in his career would that not have been a thing that was present. But he faced so many setbacks and challenges with poor team communication, with coming runner-up twice and being labelled as someone that would never win, would only be the bridesmaid, and big injuries. He did his ACL famously at the after party of the 2008 Tour de France at Hard Rock Cafe in Paris. Really was wiped off chances of winning. He was getting too old and came out of nowhere to win the World Championships in 2009, changed team, and had one final setback. And then 2011 was really seen as potentially his last try. And the Tour is a long race. It's, 3.5 weeks. It's not one day. And he came into the lead on the second last day. In the time trial by himself, he rode to victory and then rode into Paris in the ceremonial stage. At the last possible moment, he took that yellow jersey to win at 34. So, and, the guy that came second was working with his brother, the Schlecks, Andy and Frank, and they were in their 20s. So Cadel really defied all the odds. He was counted out so many times, and he had a little bit of a war with the press. The press really picked on him. The English media, particularly as we see in other sports like F1, really favour English sports people, and European riders were really favoured at the time in both teams and the media, and had some encounters with the media and invasions of privacy that famously portrayed him as someone that had aggression and didn't cooperate, when really he just needed personal space and was being invaded. So his relationship with the media is a big focus of the show, and how it affected him, because it affected him to an extreme level. And 2011, he was able to shut all that out and defy the odds to come back to win. And it was an incredible tour, and still spoken about as one of the most amazing races. It was also one of the closest. He came runner-up with 2 of the 4 closest ever Tour de France's. When you're riding for 86 hours and you lose by 23 seconds, that hurts. So amazing that he came back and clawed back a minute 30 in that time trial in 2011 to win.
Wow. I feel like, as for an old person like me, I'm kind of old, it's really inspiring. And I feel like that whether you're a cyclist or not, like hearing that about it is something that connects with people. And I don't know, you didn't lean into why he had trouble with the press, but I would think that would be some kind of like anxiety or just needing space. Some people just need space. I mean, I could talk to people all day, every day, most of the time. But even last night at dinner, I was like snapping at my family because I didn't want to be around people. Like, that's something we can all kind of latch onto. That's that kind of universal truth that people can hold on to and appreciate. Thanks for sharing that about him. I'll ask you this really quick because I'm curious how this show is impacting audiences for theater, right? Like, you're getting some general theater audiences, but I'm assuming you're getting a lot of sports fans. And for some of them, I mean, I could imagine for some people, this might be one of their first live theater shows or one of the only theater shows they've seen, or come to see a solo show or come to a Fringe. Like, that's just not like in their wheelhouse of things. So how do you think this show is impacting audiences and helping kind of promote live theater?
I mean, this is the coolest thing about the show that I didn't really clock until Edinburgh, is that sport and theatre are coming together. And, you know, I'd be in the theatre, and because we're in Edinburgh and you can hear everything in the building, I could hear clip, clop up the stairs because people were coming in their cycling kits to the theatre. And I was like, this is incredible. The cycling community is one of the most passionate sporting communities in the world. They love to attend and support and buy the merch and be a part of the community. And they understand the effort, and they understand that this is the most watched sport in the world is the Tour de France, the most watched annual global sporting event, which some people sometimes forget. It's incredibly popular. And most of these people that saw it in Edinburgh didn't know me. A lot didn't know Cadel, but they knew the tour and they knew cycling, and they were there to see a lot of comedy in the evenings. And in the daytime, they're like, wait, they saw a picture of our poster with me riding on the mile, and we're like, wait, there's a cycling show? So they went and saw that. And then, as you said, most of them hadn't been to the theatre before or had not seen their sport shown on the theatre stage. So to have the cycling communities come, we had a lot of the cycling press come, you know, Escape Collective, Road CC, SBS Sport, they all reported on the show. So to get theatre into those type of publications, which are global publications, and have people like Phil Liggett attend and all these high-level cyclists that are endorsing the show and saying, no, that is cycling, and that's what's happening on stage. That was the biggest badge of honor for me. It's so awesome to see men at the theatre. Lots and lots and lots of men came by themselves and are crying at the end and standing up and going, yes, that is what I relate to, is a male sporting effort. So I'm really proud of that, because a big part of my want is for more men to go to the theatre. It's something in New York that, you know, I have a lot of friends in the sporting world, and the theatre isn't part of their vocabulary or weekly activities. And I think if I can get more people like that and go, whoa, I thought that was only on Netflix or live broadcast, but I can see something like that live. Wow. So that's a really exciting thing. So we're leaning into that and wanting to bring more sport people to the theatre, and then also we've, you know, earned the respect of the theatre community, not just critically, but with other audiences, and to bring this sport to Fringe festivals and then mainstream theatres around the world is something that I'm really proud about.
I got chills while you were talking about that. And that's so beautiful, especially when you were talking about someone really connecting with this story and seeing themselves on stage, because that's theater. We're a mirror sometimes. Sometimes we're prophetic, but, you know, sometimes it's like somebody gets me. They get it. And there's all these other people in this room and they're seeing it. And whether they're cyclists or not, like, they can come see the show and understand me. It's just really, really, really beautiful. I'm so excited that you were leaning into who you are as an artist and who you are as a person to make some really beautiful art. All right, I'm going to ask you my famous last question. Maybe you sounds like you might have some good stories. What is the most interesting or awkward Fringe interaction that you've had?
I would say something from this year, while it's on the kind of top of my head, an experience about what Fringe can do and why Fringe theatre is really, really important is I was trying to see as much Australian and New Zealand work this year. And there was an incredible piece that was recommended, but I didn't read anything about it. It was recommended highly, A Butterfly That Flew Into the Rave. And it was across at Summer Hall, and I did not know what to expect. And it was, you know, you come in and, you know, obviously raves in the title, you're thinking something to do with club music and dancing. And I sat next to someone, I'd say like conservatively in their 80s, potentially older, in the front row. And I was like, wow, okay, this is interesting. Like, you are, you know, in a wheelchair, very, very old, and coming to the show about a rave, probably a subscriber to some hall. I was thinking along those lines of didn't know what they were getting into, and neither did I really. And as you know, they dance in sync on stage to a rave the whole show. And I was incredibly moved because it is something so simple but so complex, like what they were covering in terms of the experience of rave dancers and the commitment and the grind to life, which is what actually really spoke to me, and about how they keep on with their passion. And maybe 20 minutes in, when everyone kind of collectively recognized, oh, this is what, like, they're going to do this for the whole show. And it was incredible high-level dance and in sync and high energy and just really unbelievable. And, you know, everyone kind of, oh, wow. And then I was like, oh my God, there's this person next to me that is totally from a different generation and probably is hating this. And so as I watched the rest, I also took in them in the wheelchair. And as it finished, sobbing. This old man was sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. And I said, oh, excuse me, like, do you mind if I just speak to you about that? And he said, oh, that was the most moving thing I've ever seen. And if it wasn't for a Fringe festival, that would never have happened. And I thought that is so true, because there is no commercial producer in New York that's going to produce that because of no celebrity, no IP, and the lack of thinking outside of the box. But that changed that 80-plus-year-old man's life that day, and also changed me in my 20s life. And he would never have been to a rave like that in his life, potentially. So the fact that Fringe can resonate on that level with people from all different generations, and it's such an equalizer of bringing audiences together from generations, countries, experiences, financial backgrounds, and still has that effect that it doesn't require $30 million, a celebrity, and a Broadway slot with a very closed group of people. I was restored in my faith for the industry, because it's been a lot of years of watching the community here in New York and watching people with power that are actually not creatives or in creative positions, but making decisions purely financially based, and then often seeing them fail financially, despite that being the reason that it happened in the first place, is kind of a mystery to me about what is the ethos of what we're all doing. Why are you doing that? If you want to go be involved in big movies and celebrities, go and do that and stop gatekeeping. So to see what Fringe can do on that level as an audience member, after doing my show with sport people in the audience and then walking back across the meadows and seeing the circus, like, it just restored some faith for me, because it's been a few years of like, well, is it me? Like, is it me that I just wasn't born a celebrity, so actually I'm not right for this industry, or actually I'm not born into money in that way, so it's not going to be for me, despite a few years ago thinking that it definitely and absolutely was. So it was that.
Yeah. Can I just use that as like a sounding horn for everything that I believe about Fringe? That was just absolutely beautiful. Thank you for sharing that moment with us and that beautiful show. And that 80-year-old man, I'm like wondering, did he dance when he was younger? Did he, like, what else was in his heart, or was he just so moved by it and moved by what the artists had made? It's really cool. Well, Connor, thank you so much for joining me today. I cannot wait to meet you here in a few months in person and see the show. I'm very, very excited, and it's been such a delight to have you on today.
Yeah, likewise. I can't wait to get down to South Australia and meet you and see your work and just continue to engage in the community. And thanks so much for having me and having our show on the pod.
Absolutely. Well, Cadel Lungs on Legs embarks on an Australian tour in 2026 with a preview at Cadel Evans' Great Ocean Road Race in Geelong, with Cadel Evans in attendance. An Australian premiere season opening at the New Cygnet Theatre at the Hale School in Perth from February 3rd, and a run at the 2026 Adelaide Fringe, headlining with the Goodwood Theatre Studios from February 19th. Further dates for the East Coast performances will be announced soon. You can find tickets and more information on the website at cadeltheplay.com, and you can keep up with Cadel on Instagram, TikTok, X, and Blue Sky at Cadel the Play, and on Facebook at Cadel Lungs on Legs. And if you want to know more about Connor, you can catch him on social media at Connor Delves and on the web at connordelves.com. What the Fringe is produced and hosted by me, Lauren Hantz. This episode was edited by Ben Ellis of Renowned Media, and those sweet tunes you hear are provided by Paul Snyder of Orchestra of Sound, and our logo was designed by Ruby Arnold of Ruby Makes Things. What the Fringe can be found on your favorite podcast platforms and on YouTube. So be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay in the know when new episodes release. Keep up with What the Fringe on Instagram at whatthefringe_productions and find us online at whatthefringeproductions.com. It's your first time at a Fringe festival and you show up to the artist's Fringe mixer and you're hoping it's going to be like this magical Fringe friend smorgasbord, and then you quickly realize
0 people know who I am except this production assistant, who is very lovely, and the snow machine's broken.